All right, everyone. The fateful day is finally here. I am here live with Mike Enoch of TRS. Thank you for having this chat with me.
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while.
Yeah, I've actually I know about what you stand for, sort of, and your work. But I think there are probably some people who are subscribed to my channel. They'll be watching this stream. They probably don't know actually who you are. So if you wanted to sort of introduce yourself to people, say, what is it exactly that you do? And also, what is the right stuff? I think some people would be interested in hearing that as well.
All right, yeah, the right stuff. I'm basically the owner and host of the right stuff. It's an alt-right website where I do a podcast, an alt-right podcast. With my partner, we have a number of other podcasts. People know, I mean, my podcast is TDS. We can say that, for this broadcast. Fascination.
It's the Daily Show, obviously.
Yes, it's a show that it's 3 times weekly, but it used to be weekly, and people would get triggered. They're like, "Why are you calling it daily?" But Fascination is our sister podcast, and then we have a number of other podcasts related to different regions, different interests, and like subcultural niches and things like that. So it's basically just a podcast hub for the alt-right. I started the site about 5 years ago. I started my podcast about 3.5 years ago. And we've gotten, we went from, 400 regular visitors to about, I would say, 20,000 regular visitors. We have more casuals, but in terms of a hardcore fan base, I'd say it's about that number. So yeah, that's good. That's about it.
Yeah, it's pretty substantial. Also, somebody is saying in chat to red pill you on the joy of Satan. This is actually something that I wanted to ask for some time. Are you even aware of them? As sort of the Luciferian alt-right, you could say?
No, I'm not aware of that. I mean, I'm aware of there's a sort of an atheist alt-right. There's a Christian alt-right, a Catholic Orthodox alt-right. There's not very much of a Protestant alt-right. And then there's like a pagan alt-right, which is more sort of into, I guess, Norse type paganism than Greco-Roman paganism. There's a small contingent of Greco-Roman pagans, but I guess the pagans, I don't know. I am basically, I myself am an atheist, but I'm agnostic on that stuff. I don't think it's useful for our movement to get involved in religious infighting. So, I mean, I would be interested in looking at that. I don't know that Satanism is really, kind of brand that we might. No, and I don't want to insult you or anything like that.
Oh, no, I'm not a Satanist. Yeah. I'm a pagan and an occultist. I left Satanism behind half a decade ago. So.
Yeah, my opinion of Satanism, like my impression of it was sort of like the whole Anton LaVey thing, which is, Anton LaVey, he was a member of a certain ethnic group, and he was very Randian in his outlook. Like he was very influenced by Ayn Rand, and he was also kind of a troll. I never took that stuff too seriously.
He was also influenced by Ragnar Redbeard's Midas, right? I think that actually may have something in common with the primordial. I believe, if I read correctly, and I don't know if this is accurate because of the site that it comes from, but according to the SBLC, for what it's worth, they claim you were kind of on the fringe of libertarianism early on. I don't know if that's 100% true, but actually Midas Right was one of the first true libertarian manifestos. Some of it was taken verbatim and put into Satanism.
Yeah, it is true that I was not on the fringes. I was in libertarianism. I was very much involved in the libertarian community until I would say about 2010. So I would say probably from early 2000s to about 2010, I was deeply involved in the libertarian community. I wasn't really a voice, although I did have a website where I wrote blogs occasionally, and I did podcasts with just myself occasionally on kind of like aping like Stefan Molyneux type talking points and things like that. Then I was apolitical. I was burned down on politics for a couple of years, and around 2012, around the Obama re-election, I got kind of reinterested in politics, and I went further to the right. And around 2011, I was doing going on poll and stuff like that, and the golden age of poll. And I mean, I guess there's some that are so, there's such old school poll people that even saying 2011 was the golden age. They're like newbie, like. But yeah, so yeah. So that's accurate. I don't expect much else on the S. Well, I mean, I think the SPLC might have accurate information, but they'll present it in the most prejudicial and biased way that they possibly can to make you look like some kind of weirdo crackpot, when actually my life is relatively ordinary for kind of like a middle-class suburban person.
I've actually noticed that regarding this is actually one reason why I'm talking to you is essentially weeks ago. I was invited on to debate Richard Spencer. I think at this point everybody knows this, that I was there on Andy Warski's show. And you got to understand, I'm there debating Richard Spencer, an identitarian, all right. And by even debating him, because I didn't break down into, basically crying or shouting match, I was called a Nazi enabler, Nazi sympathizer by people who had like a hammer and sickle usernames on Twitter, or they had like Marx avatars. When I realized that there was no way to have a logical, well-structured debate without getting called a Nazi, I threw up my hands and I said, well, nobody on the far right, so-called, has ever done this. And I even see some people who are sort of identitarian. They're not even really far right in the economic or social sense. I'm wondering about sort of more of your fiscal beliefs as well. I think people would be interested in hearing them, because I know you've got an interest as well in the modern political sense, and sort of the FISA debate, what's going on in modern politics. I figured we could talk about that a little bit too, if you wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, like I agree with you on the left, and in a way, I think they're doing us a favor. They're kind of admitting that they don't have arguments. I mean, when you censor, it's because you don't have arguments. And their thing is and they'll say that they don't have arguments. And one of the thing is that it's interesting with this sort of new interaction with, I guess, sort of this more center right, or even sometimes center left, so-called skeptic community, or I don't know what, many of them are what we would call civic nationalists. They are kind of entering into debate with us, into a conversation with us right now, and that's beneficial. And they're not, they don't buy into this no platforming stuff. And so to the extent that they, although I think they have been surprised by the fact that we do have a lot of arguments, because there's been this stigma attached, and this no platforming, and this attempt to paint a picture of people that don't necessarily have the, outside of the alt-right sphere, people don't know, so they rely on things that they've heard. And, of course, they can control Google, what you get on Google about people. They can control what you see on TV or you see in the mainstream about people. And a lot of people default to that. And it's unfortunate. But then there's also people that are distrustful of the mainstream, and they want to find out for themselves. And that works to our benefit, because then we get to speak for ourselves.
I can remember, several years ago when people were spreading bullshit about you. It even fooled people like myself. Actually, I believe that led to the latest bout where you and was it Sven there in the leather jacket? Yeah, that was him. That was him in the leather jacket. Yeah, no, I mean, I thought it was hilarious. I laughed my ass off when I actually saw that. And it was,
Sven has been a huge fan of yours, as has my other co-host Alex. They were huge fans of yours. I did like your stuff during the election. I kind of, like a lot of people, maybe stopped. My viewership petered off, but yeah, I mean, look, there's bullshit about me. I don't feel the need to address it. Some of it I can't address for legal reasons. But look, I'm not, what they're saying isn't true. I don't think we need to take. Yeah,
if you listen to a lot of your critics, you are both at the same time, you are both hypocritical and inauthentic while also being literally Hitler. Just like I'm a cock and a sellout, but at the same time, I'm sort of like secretly, I'm like Goebbels. I secretly enable, you and Spencer and all of these other people without any problems. So.
Well, I mean, I think the response to the censorship of the left, the deplatforming of the left, should be us, people like us, people and from where you're coming from and where we're coming from, developing a robust free speech culture of our own on the internet.
Absolutely.
I think this is the most potent response we can have. Be like, all right, well, you guys have decided to basically sit this one out. And I always say leftists more than welcome to come on my show. And I know people are like, oh, I don't want to go into your arena. and debate you. And I'm like, all right, that's fine. But whenever we said this, I'm always like, we'll record it. We'll record everything. You can put your copy out if we edit you, if we make it seem unfair or whatever. But they simply won't have the argument. But there's now platforms other than mine that that people can come and talk to me on. That's a good thing for me. But yeah, I think that I don't know if you have any label about what you would say, any kind of group orientation that you have. I don't want to put anything on you.
I'm a Stixist.
Yeah, but you're in this sort of maybe center right or more libertarian or civic nationalist. I'm not sure what it would be.
Well, no, it's not centrism.
Okay, sure.
Libertarian is a little bit libertarian.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You're in this sort of vague internet right, and I think that those of us in that have it's plus our conversation is just going to be more interesting. Like we don't need to talk to leftists anymore, right? Like we hear their crap day in and day out. Like everybody knows this. Like I was talking.
I've seen that before because this has been mentioned more times than I can count. Like I've challenged people on the left to debate. They never want to come on. Like even what's his name there, Jared Holt from Right Wing Watch. He'll sit there and he'll write nasty articles about the YouTube is far right, it's extremist. Then I say, hey, come on and give me a half an hour, we'll debate this. Like, I'm not going to shut you off. I'm not going to cut you off or silence you, but,
no, he won't do it.
He won't do it. Andy Warski has this problem. He's pointed this out 3 or 4 times now, that the same people that are like, oh, well, you won't platform somebody from the left to come on and debate these alt-righters or the populists or something. And then they never show up. They'll never respond. They'll get a Hangout link. They never show up, like Vadim infamously doing this. He was rambling about the fact that I was going to be aboard on the Spencer debate and trying to cast me off as though I was like Adolf Hitler or something.
Yeah, no, they won't do it. And it's like, well, I mean, this is the thing. Like they know that they can't win the argument. And they also know that they feel at least that they have the political media cultural hegemony that they don't need to, like, all they want to do is silence. Like they have the elite media, the mainstream media is essentially already their team, and they just want to keep it that way. Like they have all this institutional support, this support from people with billions of dollars, educational institutions, the state, the deep state. All these things are essentially supportive of their point of view, or not, or don't object to it, or they are useful idiots for it. I mean, obviously the people that are like in the elite are not like anarcho-communist, but anarcho-communists are extremely useful to them when they want to have a bunch of people come and break up an anti-immigration protest, right? So
that's wonderful.
If you have right-wingers that are like, hey, look, we're nationalists. We want the borders closed. We've had enough of this third world immigration. We've had enough of jobs getting outsourced. We've had enough of our labor markets not being protected. Enough of the decrease in wages, the decrease in living standards, essentially bringing in scabs from other countries. We've had enough of this, and lo and behold, here are these trust fund commies. They will always get a wealthy lawyer to represent them if they get in trouble for doing violent acts in the street.
George Soros has to do something with his money. Yeah,
exactly. So while certainly like they have this silly like idea of some kind of a narco-communist thing that doesn't make any sense, but is popular with wealthy wealthy dilettante-ish upper class people. That's not important what they think. What matters is that they're mobilized to come out and do physical violence against right wing people that want to make a statement. That's their role. So yeah.
I wonder if they ever feel uncomfortable with the fact that they get paid by Soros, who helped literally turn Jews over to the Gestapo. So,
well, I think that's. I'm not sure about that about George Soros. I also don't think that it's necessary to. George Soros is bad enough. What he actually does, I don't think things about him that aren't true need to be spread. I'm very skeptical of those claims.
Look at the nation of Hungary and how they'll treat him.
Oh yeah, no, they don't want him. And look, this guy has no compunction about crashing out the currency of an entire nation, right? He'll speculate in currency, and he can move enough that he can crash out a currency of an entire nation, like Hungary, and he's done it before. So he's bad enough. We don't need to. I don't believe these stories that he was turning people over to the Gestapo, and I don't think it's necessary to paint him as a bad guy. He's a bad guy. And in terms of like the direct funding of Antifa or not, like I don't know how they get money. I do know that one thing I do know for sure is that they go out, they commit aggressive violence in the street, and then they get lawyers. They get lawyers, and those lawyers are working pro bono or something, and that's effectively being funded by very wealthy people. So
lately they've been facing the music. I think didn't they take a bunch of those Antifa members during Trump's post inauguration in those days? I think several hundred of them got multi-year sentences. It was actually the first time that I've seen a large number of them get
several hundred of them got indicted. They've been slowly acquitting them.
Oh, they've been acquitting them. Yeah.
Yep. And hey, look,
only if they're from California.
Well, I mean, look, the judge herself is the judge that's been presiding over these cases is a member of a certain tribe, and many of the people that are being indicted are members of this tribe, and it doesn't surprise us that there would be this kind of nepotism going on, or this kind of favoritism going on. I mean, it's not surprising.
Yeah. Also, it's great to be able to have this sort of conversation with you on YouTube, but I also wanted to ask you about alt tech,
sure,
or alternative or open source. I know Bill Ottman of Minds.com, he refers to open source tech and like has disowned the label alt tech, but certainly Gab, some of the fundraising platforms like a Maker Support or a Patreon, which I'm not sure is even still back up for maintenance. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with them. But sites like that, what's your opinion of alt tech? Do you think that that's the future of the internet?
I mean, I think that one of the most disturbing things that happened in the wake of the Charlottesville protest and the violence, it was 100% caused. I know that there's people out there that might have a wrong impression of this. The violence was 100% caused by the left in that situation, even the car accident that happened. Now, we don't need to go into that, because I want to get to the alt tech question. The most disturbing thing was what happened to the Daily Stormer. Now, I'm not asking people to like the Daily Stormer, but the fact that somebody can be depersoned from the internet, the Andrew Anglin, is basically they're saying this guy can't have a website, right? And the tools that go all the way up to the top of controlling the internet, the ICANN, the International Conference on Numbers and Names, that controls ultimately who can register domain names on the internet. This is something that's very the average person, this is totally obscure to them. They have no idea what this is. It gets very arcane when you get up to the top, but it does. Essentially, there was this international bureaucracy, nonprofit international organization that was controlling this, and they had certain principles. And those principles were they didn't do this, right? Like they didn't kick people off the internet, and domain registrars would always essentially say, like, we register the domains, we link the domains to the IP addresses in the root servers, and that's all we do. Everything else, if there's illegal stuff going on, that's up to law enforcement agencies. Certain things are illegal some places and not others. We're not, that's not our purview. We just link domains up. If the person owning the domain does something illegal with it, that's the business of law enforcement. But ever since the Daily Stormer issue, that's not been true, at least in terms of the Daily Stormer. And he's out there fighting. So people, you can hate Andrew Anglin, you can hate the Daily Stormer, but the fight that he's engaging in is protecting everybody else.
Exactly. It's morphed beyond ethno-nationalism versus, hey, multiculturalism or globalism. And this is the big thing that I've got, and people on the left still don't quite understand it when I try to tell them this. It's gotten into a free speech, will we or will we not have a free and open internet debate. I personally think the left can't possibly win that fight.
They can't.
No, because the average person at the end of the day, I think, is going to side with those that want the internet to remain roughly the same as it is and not be like corporatized. And that's also what they're arguing for. They're arguing for a handful of very rich companies to be able to control the process. What on earth sense does that make when these people at the same breath, they'll claim, well, I'm a progressive, I question corporate and government power, or at least that's what the left traditionally has stood for. And then at the same time, they're saying, oh, but there are certain people that have views that are so harmful that we can't platform them. They're the same people that see no problem with like limited state on YouTube. And then you look at a list of the videos in there, it's all like old 30s music. It's like some marching. I've used the analogy of a tuba band from the 1920s, like some Bavarian drinking band gets banned because they said Jew or something, or they, they made some other reference to eugenics.
Yeah, and I mean that's not surprising. I mean, basically every symbol of like Germanic and Nordic culture has been essentially associated. I mean, if you go look at the SPLC's or the ADL's list of hate symbols, these are traditional symbols of Germanic and Nordic people. Like it's not, this makes me very angry that these people are being told your heritage is, you can't have it because it makes a certain group very upset.
I want to celebrate my frog god heritage, and they don't have any right to label it as a hate symbol.
Exactly. Right, exactly. And
that's my deity.
Yeah, the question, I guess, was about alt tech, and I think it's a good thing that people are doing it. There was a lot of talk when what happened to Anglin initially happened of people building a domain registrar. I'm not sure where that is. There's some. I mean, there are competitors out there. I don't want to list things off and make people targets. But there's competitors out there that will respect your free speech. Competitors to mainstream big providers of services like Gab will protect you. That's one that everybody knows about. Patreon was a funding platform. I'm not sure what's going on there either.
Yeah, it's been over a month, and I think they have their page up saying they're still in maintenance, not accepting pledges. But Maker support has become arguably more functional. They even allow one time. They do something that Patreon doesn't do, which is one-time donations. I actually really like Maker support a lot. I'm surprised more people don't use it.
And do they have a dedication to free speech?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great.
They're strictly alt tech. It's sort of like Gab or any of these other sites. Like Minds, they use that sort of as their tagline. Like it's free speech, while disowning the alt tech label. And I'm wondering, actually, it'll be interesting, I think, to see over the next few years whether that label holds different groups back or whether it actually helps them. I think there's something to be said for Ottman's philosophy on that, maybe.
Well, I think the word alt is something that when the alt-right started, first of all, it wasn't a purposely adopted title. It was a name. It was something that actually a Jew, Paul Gottfried, said in his speech, where he said, we need a new alternative right. And then Spencer created the site Alternative Right years ago, and it was sort of a clearinghouse. It wasn't an ethno-nationalist site purely. It was sort of a clearinghouse for things that were too edgy for, conservatism. It was right-wing opinions that conservatives wouldn't print, right? And a lot of them. There was manosphere stuff. There was ethno-nationalist stuff. There was anarcho-capitalist stuff. So it was like this clearinghouse for that stuff, and that was great. And then the label kind of just stuck as Spencer became more and more of an ethno-nationalist. And so I guess the term alt now inevitably brings up that association. So the alt tech thing, which is, I don't know. I mean, we could debate the viability of labels, but ultimately the thing is, any label that is taken up by people that believe what I believe and what Spencer believes is going to be tarred by there's no label you can find, because we did all right, and 3 years ago there was no negative associations with it. It was great because it was like, but now
it was basically the right wing, only maybe without the total warmongering of W or Evangelocon rhetoric or something. Well,
it was always I do want to make clear the alt-right has always been anti-war. We've always been anti-war.
And I think Paul Joseph Watson is correct when he compares the new sort of right-wing movements of the world with the counterculture of the 60s. Honestly, I think there's a huge amount of overlap.
Yeah, no, there is, and the another interesting thing is the total collapse of the anti-war left, or at least any credible anti-war left. I mean, I see, and whenever I actually get Antifa or a leftist to talk to me, one of the things I say is like, all right, well, you're mad at us, right? You don't like us. You don't like the alt-right, so-called racists, Nazis, whatever you want to say. Ethno-nationalists, anti-immigration people. I mean, anybody that's anti-immigration is going to be called a Nazi. So it
used to be called a union liberal, sort of a populist.
Yeah, I know. I know. So yeah, like that's a thing. But the left has no credibility on the anti-war issue. I mean, I asked them, I'm like, okay, so you're mad at us, But and you come and you protest us. But think about all the stuff that's like we don't have power, right? We're just agitating. We're agitating for change. We're not pulling the levers of power. There are people pulling the levers of power that are doing things that, according to your philosophy, is completely objectionable. I don't see you protesting at the Israeli embassy about their treatment of Palestinians. I don't see you protesting wars anymore. I don't see you protesting. I didn't see you. Where were you when Obama was intervening in Libya?
Exactly. They're too busy protesting about Trump having a military parade at this point. I mean, it's the saddest, most hypocritical nonsense bullshit that I've ever seen in my life. As someone who I was far left, arguably, back in the Bush era, people would have looked at me, they would have thought I was further left than a Clinton or an Obama. They would have called me a hippie. I got called a pinko when I was trolling on Facebook back then. Then I went through a period where people basically called me a libertarian, and now they think that I'm way, way far right. Like they think that I'm going to be, the leader of the Fourth Reich or something, because I don't like war. I don't think that American workers should be, screwed. I guess the idea from the Democrats as a partisan movement, I don't think it overlaps fully with the left. I think the idea is that too many of those middle and working class workers are white, honestly. And so it becomes indefensible to defend them, becomes bigoted or racist, even though, I mean, they're working class individuals. They have families too.
Yeah, the anti-whiteness of the left has really gone out of control recently.
I think it destroys them over time.
Yeah, I mean it's like who wants to be associated with that? Like a lot of POC, a lot of blacks and Mexicans, like they don't want to be associated with that, like it's just ugly, and it's
hateful.
Yeah, it is. It's objectively hateful, and like it's also it's in power. That's the scariest thing about it, is the people with these views. I mean, Nancy Pelosi is up there basically talking about how she wishes her grandson was brown or something like this, and I'm like, lady. Yeah,
well, Pelosi's got dementia.
Yeah, I'm like, lady.
Yeah, even some of the leftists at this point, I think, are questioning her mental capabilities.
No, dude, a Mexican person hearing that would be like,
what the fuck are you talking about?
Is something wrong with you? Like, what? Yeah.
Like you say that it's racist to notice race, but if you notice race, it's racist. If you don't, it's racist. For someone who's white. And I've noticed this, if you want to partake in like another culture, like you enjoy like foreign food or something, that's like appropriation.
Oh, yeah,
and if you don't, then you're just white bread. It's like, well, what the fuck are we supposed to do as people? We have a culture as well. You can argue all day over whether it's nationality or ethnicity or whether it's a white race in general. But I don't think anyone should feel guilty for who they are. That includes other groups. But the difference is the left thinks that there are certain groups that shouldn't take pride. The right, as far as I see it, I don't think that you hate someone just because they're African or something. No. And I know like Spencer doesn't, Johnson doesn't. I can disagree. I could disagree all day with certain of your beliefs, but I don't consider you to be a particularly hate-filled individual on those tokens. But I see people on the left; they're filled with hate towards millions of people.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the canard, I guess it's hate is it's just a silencing mechanism. I mean, the accusation of Nazism, the accusation of hate, and it's like it's not hate. Like we're allowed to love ourselves. And if you think that there's, I mean, the other thing is this. It's like one thing a lot of people come out at. They're like, oh, the white race, that doesn't even exist. That's a social construct, right? But it's not a social construct when you're attacking it. And okay, maybe. People that identify racially as white and value that, maybe, they're making some grave epistemological error. I mean, I don't think so. But even if so, like your reaction to it, as a leftist, I mean, not you, obviously, but the leftist reaction to it, the hateful anti-white reaction, it validates it. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and some of these people they seem to want a civil war. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, and in the same token that you're saying, well, America must be strong and resist the Nazis, basically, they also want to rip the United States apart. Anything, in my opinion, that wants to rip it apart, I would oppose. It's just like earlier, I don't know if you saw the story. I made a video about it this morning. The Duluth School District banned To Kill a Mockingbird. Now, we all know To Kill a Mockingbird is basically about racial tolerance and not judging someone for being black and not throwing them in jail for a crime they didn't commit. It's this very touching sort of civil rights
it's
style
actually
story.
even it's even more it is that, but really if you look at it, it's sinister. It's telling people if a white woman says a black man raped her, she's lying.
Yeah, but like, it's not exactly a Nazi manuscript is my point. But
no. We did a show actually on To Kill a Mockingbird in the history of how it came to publication.
But the NAACP applauded the move and said it was wonderful. It was overdue that this book, because it uses the N-word, the word that shall not be named anywhere in the world, we must forget it altogether while honoring it, I guess. Because it mentions that word, it's a good thing that it gets banned. But the thing is, the book actually argues in favor of racial justice.
It's a pro-black book. I don't understand, like, how are these people, like, how stupid?
I don't understand. The other book was Huckleberry Finn. It's like, okay, maybe that makes sense. Book. Yeah, but maybe that one makes more sense historically speaking. But To Kill a Mockingbird, my goodness, nobody ever became like a Klan member because they read To Kill a Mockingbird.
That To Kill a Huckleberry Finn, at least I was told when I was in school, when we read it, that this is something that was banned because it showed a friendship between a black and a white.
Exactly.
And now it's people that are coming from the opposite side that want to ban it because it says, because it has like, black dialect in it.
I'm assuming they just want to ban it because it's too good a book. They don't want people to be entertained, and they're just stupid, and they think that kids in school shouldn't be entertained. They should have to read the Gay Gatsby over and over.
Yeah, it also, the other thing about Huck Finn is that why I could see it potentially being not palatable to the left today is that it does depict a friendship between a white boy and a black man. The racial differences between the two are like a key focal point of the story. Yeah. And Jim is very black. He speaks very black. So it's like, it's quite clear, it basically makes the racial dichotomy by pointing out the novelty of this friendship. It makes the racial dichotomy clear. So that could be a thing because they're very into the whole, there is no race.
Just wait until they ban Roots for depicting rape.
Yeah. Right. And also the N-word.
Exactly. Why isn't Roots being banned? Kids shouldn't be reading this as the N-word. Rape scenes very, very sexist.
People are just dumb, particularly the To Kill a Mockingbird. But I for a while I've been wanting to get like feminists going up against To Kill a Mockingbird because essentially it's a book that says don't believe rape allegations. But that would
be insane. That's a whole and the thing is, they'll actually on Tumblr they would have that argument. That's the reason why I can't side with the left. They've alienated everyone. They don't even seem to understand that every time they claim like, I'm a Nazi, everyone else is a Nazi who's not like part of their club. They're alienating those same people who otherwise, I can make a coherent debate against someone who believes in like maybe strong-armed ethno-nationalism. But I'm not going to bother doing that if I'm going to get called Hitler in the process. So I think they need to be ideologically punished, honestly. They should be shut out for a while. See how they like censorship.
No, I totally agree. And like I said, we develop our own robust free speech culture. They're going to come knocking and they're going to want in on this. They're going to be like, can we be in on you on the culture you guys have developed? I think the all tech thing though, we kind of never finished that. I think it's a good development. I think unfortunately, I have to be a realist here that unfortunately we're at a place where potentially every single one of us could just get shut down. And it hasn't happened, because I think of agitation on our part and the fact that the American public, generally speaking, retains a large respect for free speech is a core value. So it wouldn't be a popular move. Like when Cloudflare actually decided to throw Anglin under the bus and stop providing services to the Daily Stormer, despite the fact that people don't like Andrew and they might not like the Daily Stormer, Cloudflare took heat for that because they had said, we're not doing that. Like we don't discriminate on content as long as it doesn't break the law. And nothing Anglin has ever put on his website breaks the law. He's allowed to say whatever he wants.
Anglin didn't run over anyone. I have my own feelings about Anglin, but he's not a murderer. He's not the one that was at Charlottesville.
No, and I mean, like he wrote. People could argue about the taste of the article that he wrote.
Yeah, it was, but distasteful. Everything's
So what?
distasteful to somebody.
Yeah, I mean that's not
Exactly.
that's the whole purpose of the First Amendment.
I don't think that the left understands that they drive people like you and I together on the issue of censorship when they do this strong arm stuff. That's their Achilles heel.
And they say like, oh well, the fascists they wouldn't respect free speech, and I'm like, no, I'll respect free speech. Look, if I ever become Reichsmarshal Enoch or something like that of the ethno United States or something like that, I will reserve a spot on Sunday afternoon for communists to come out and say what they want right in the middle of right there in front of the public. Right, I'll put a podium up and I'll let commies just stand right there and tell it to everybody on the street. Go ahead, tell us how you want communism.
Exactly. You want morons you'd want people to speak if you think they're moronic, because then they'll betray their moronism basically. Yeah, that's why I keep asking people on the left, like, come aboard and debate me so that I can expose you in the pro-censorship weird views that you have, and none of them want to do it.
Yeah. So I think with the alt tech, I'm enthusiastic about some of the developments, but I think that we still have to deal with the fact that we do have this issue where the levers of the internet are still in the control of people that are ideologically opposed to us. And I think on that note, like, we should also go a political route. Like there's a technical route where we try to develop alternative technologies that we can use that's had some success. But there's a political route we should go too. And I think that we should agitate very strongly, for example, Paul Nealon, whatever you think of him, his proposed legislation, that has to be on the agenda. And we have to hold the Republicans' feet to the fire on this. We're like, you're not going to lose out. Like Republicans, and I saw the debate with Paul Nealon and this Rebel Media John Cardillo guy, who's like this edgy rebel, because I don't buy this guy's act, but whatever. Where he's doing exactly what we call cucking, because essentially cucking, as it's been developed in political discourse over the last few years, is when you do your enemy's work for them. So by him adhering strongly to this principle that private actors are allowed to discriminate, even when those private actors are virtual monopolies that have achieved their level of power and market share, via regulation, state interference, subsidy, etc. Even when they, Google, they just got that, right? That just happened. Facebook, that just happened, right? They didn't piggyback off technologies developed by the Department of Defense and phone lines spread all across the nation that the American people subsidize on their phone bills every month. No, they didn't piggyback off that. No, they just went right in there, and that's completely. So they have every right to discriminate. It's like, look, I think
I find that argument very, very strange from libertarians. That supposedly they're like liberty number one, but it's okay if a private company abuses me, even if that company is technically gaining monopoly status because of government intervention. I try to explain this to the left, the right, and the libertarians all the time, that in an interventionist model, it's not real capitalism. It's not full competition. You would think that at some point, how much government intervention is required before you relegate the private business to a public utility and tell it, no, you can't discriminate either. Like, just bake the fucking cake, basically.
Yeah, and and there's obviously differences of scale here, right? Because libertarians would want to obfuscate those different. And the point of the cucking was that John Cardillo, like you particularly, Cardillo, would lose out if the left gained the total power of censorship that you would give them through the ability of private actors to totally censor, because you would be censored. Like he particularly would be, because he's right wing enough that he would be censored. They think he's a Nazi too.
And the libertarian doesn't understand it, because of the same profit motive that they actually enjoy. If you empower a group to cause that censorship, it's always going to want to censor anti-censorship voices as well, no matter how abusive it becomes, because it's in its profit motive to do so. Right. And they apply this to everything else. This is one reason why the Libertarian Party is further. Libertarianism as an ideology I can be part of. The Libertarian Party, not really, because at the same time, they're like, oh, we'll open the border and, private industry, if they abuse you, that's okay. Because, you have choice, even if you don't technically have choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think they fetishize the public-private dichotomy when really an issue is like, is this an institution that has gained enough power that can deny rights and coercively so, and like these big internet natural they are like these are not things where you have where they have, well, one, their market share is in an interventionist economy. They have gotten their favors from the government. They have used subsidy, etc. We've been over that. And all we're asking is they respect the First Amendment. I don't want to put onerous regulations on them. I think they have a right to make money. Respect the First Amendment. Don't censor the people. The people of the United States have rights. You have to respect them, particularly since you've piggybacked off the accomplishments of the government that these people pay taxes to. How simple is it? It's not like, and where would there? I mean, Cardillo was arguing with Nealon as if this would be some onerous thing that would like hurt their profits. Like, no, it would save them work.
Yeah, it would save them a huge amount of money. They wouldn't have to moderate 99% of the stuff people flag. Like YouTube, most of the flags that happen on this platform probably are due to offensive content at this point. It's certainly not taking place on spam, because there's still plenty of that on the platform.
Yeah, and no one's suggesting that like realistic threats of violence, depictions of illegal activity, depictions of illegal things with sexual activity, depictions of illegal things with like depicting actual violence against people, things. No one's like snuff or gore. No one is suggesting that. We're talking about speech. I mean, the First Amendment has a context that goes beyond just it's specifically political. It's saying you can advocate politically for what you want. It's like, it's not saying like you can
unpopular speech.
Yeah, I mean, because there was obscenity laws at the same time as the First Amendment. We're not saying like you can depict like somebody, like a body being dismembered or something like that, or like actual murders and things like that, or like voluntary, somebody like agrees to be killed on camera and you can show that. No, that we're not talking about that. Well, first of all, they can't agree. You can't agree to be murdered, but like whatever. But that's not what's being suggested here. What's being suggested is that political speech, which is the context, that is the important context of the First Amendment, that cannot be censored. Legal political speech that is not advocating for immediate violence. I mean, you can make the argument state action is backed up by threat of force, which it is. Therefore, literally anybody that advocates for a policy I want the government to do is advocating for violence. I mean, you could make this argument, but that applies to everybody. So if I say I want the government to change their immigration policy to favor whites rather than non-whites, I mean, this guy is a violent Nazi. Well, no, I'm advocating for a government policy.
They should ban the Democratic and Republican parties from speaking at all then, because of their pro-war rhetoric over time.
Yeah, and how is advocating for an immigration policy that benefits a certain group of people? I mean, Hispanics do this all the time, right? Like they advocate for immigration policies that benefit Hispanics. So the idea that white people would do it now, it's intolerable, right?
Yeah.
Why?
It's a very strange country we live in. I think I may be more optimistic than you on the alt tech front. In general, I'm still optimistic long term that these technologies will increase, and that because I believe that we're in the end of a paradigm shift. I tend to believe that the old, the establishment left with all of its social justice warrior offshoots will basically die off. They'll lose power over time, and we'll see a reformist left that maybe it'll actually be a leftist movement instead of the fakery we see today with banks and corporate cocksucking. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm hopeful. I'm actually hopeful that it's more optimistic than you yourself would believe, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that would be fantastic. I mean, I would like a return to an old left, like a real left.
Yeah, hippies.
And a real militant, like unionist, economic left. Which I mean, I know libertarians don't like that, but it's a respectable thing. Like what we have now, like this leftist movement is a parade of clowns, and has been given power to bully everybody. It's insane.
Yeah. Anyways, I've enjoyed this conversation, but did you have anything you wanted to shout out before I let you go here? Other than TRS itself.
Yeah. My website. Can I say the domain?
Yeah, you can say the domain, definitely.
It's therightstuff.biz. You can come check out our podcasts, and I'll be on Warski next week again, I think. And
oh, nice.
You know, I'll probably be on Baked Alaska is going to want to have me on his stream sometime next week or some other. We're still working out when, but I'll be on the streams. I'll be in the blood sports.
When you're on Warski, I'll make sure to troll the chat.
Yeah, no, and I think this is a great development. This what we're calling internet blood sports, and this is part of our. I mean, the SPLC criticized it, and what's his name? That soy boy reporter we were talking about. He wrote that.
Jared Holt.
Yeah, he wrote that totally dishonest article about it. But this is what free speech looks like, Jared. You might not like it.
Yeah, he's free to come aboard the Kumite sometime with me.
Come on,
I'll give him the link. I'll literally message him out of the blue on Twitter just so that he'll come aboard there.
He won't do it. He won't do it.
No.
That guy wanted to be a journalist, an important writer. He had dreams. He wants to work for the New York Times. He wants to write the great American novel or something. But what does he do?
Well, his antagonism is working.
Propaganda.
If you check when they post his articles, they do get a boost. That's why they continue to post them. I'm tempted to just start ignoring him, but the thing is, like, you got to call out lies when you see them, I suppose.
Well, what I want to say is, what happened to your writing career, Jared? What happened to that? What happened to your aspirations of being a great journalist and writer? And what do you do? What do you do with your life, Jared? You write cheap, dishonest political hit propaganda against your fellow Americans. When you wanted to be, he studied writing in college. I looked this guy up. I know what he's about.
He's almost
a failed
certainly
writer.
Do a write-up about this chat that we're having right now. Styx has notorious leader of new neo-Nazi movement. A board channel, obviously showing true colors or something. And then he'll say that I'm obsessed with him, despite the fact that I think I've been in 3 or 4 different articles by now, actually, as well as a bunch of tweets that he's made.
Yeah, I mean, the SPLC is we could have another conversation about that organization at some point. That's a that's a hate organization, in my opinion. But there's a number of other things that it is too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I've had a great time, but I think I'll let you go now. To everyone out there, again, this has been Mike Enoch of TRS, and thank you for being aboard.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was great being on.
Have a good one.
All right, talk to you later.
Bye.